Firstly, what I'd like to do is welcome you officially on behalf of the Executive Leaders Network to what is actually 4 simultaneous summits in one. And although you will have selected tracks, do feel that you can change. So if you see something that looks really particularly interesting, i.e. a track I'm leading, and you want to come and join us, then please do. So I'm going to take my glasses off so that I can read a couple of slides here, and I'm just going to go through the housekeeping before we get into the main body of our work. So what we're here to do today is, firstly, we want to share some information with you. We've got some great experts laid up, practitioners, people who are doing your job, people who are actually working with people like you doing your job. And I call them the been there, done that, got the bloodied t-shirt gang. Yeah, because let's be honest, it's great to hear about what we should do, but it's even better to hear about what we shouldn't when somebody else stuffed it up so that we don't do exactly the same thing. So use this, firstly, as an opportunity to learn. Now, don't think that in a day, even with an agenda as packed as ours, you're going to learn everything that you need, but hopefully you will leave with some new insights, but more importantly, network. Get to know people, talk about your issues. We're all friends here. So I'm not going to personally ask people to share things which are confidential or embarrassing. I do that over dinner. No, I'm going to ask people to just share those experiences. And we've got a mixture today of fireside conversations. We're going to do a few of those in a moment. Formal presentations, discussions, panel debates. There's a heck of a lot going on. And there are plenty of chances for you to ask questions as well, and we'll do our best to answer those. And don't forget, we have an exhibition next door as well, so you can go and talk to some of the vendors and hear about what they're hearing about in the marketplace and how they're solving it. And as well as networking, I do encourage you to stay for the day. Now, our last panel session today is about a very interesting topic, one that I'm very privileged. I get to talk to a lot of executives. And one of the things I keep hearing is, we're in the transformation program, it's not going great, or it hasn't delivered what we thought it was going to deliver. So our final panel is going to talk about that. Why is it that so many digital transformation programs stutter or fail to meet all of their objectives? There are a whole range of reasons why that may be, but there are also things you can do about that. Anyway, it wouldn't be a conference without some slides, so I've got a few. So the first of which is I want to thank our sponsors, particularly Gemserv and OneTrust. I can see you. Because without their support, it wouldn't be possible to do this. They're paying for all the catering. They're paying for everything we're doing today, as well as the venue. So thank you very much to our sponsors. And also, I want to remind people, we used to do an app, and people saying, well, the app doesn't work. I can't see it. We have an event site. Most of you have been on the event site for registration. Do check, because if you've got one-to-one meetings scheduled, or if there's been a change in the agenda, it'll be first there. So in the same way that I used to say, check the app, now check the event site to make sure that you're up to date. So that's that. As I say, packed agenda. We're going right through today with a whole series of things. There are one-to-one meetings in amongst those as well. Plenty of opportunities to grab a coffee and a bun out the front. But I'm really looking forward to hearing from our experts. I have never attended an ELN event, even as a moderator, without learning something valuable and new. Never. Every single one, I've gone off with a couple of little bullet points. So there's a lot to learn. There's a lot going on. So our agenda, as I say, is a mixture of formal presentations, panel debates, one-to-one meetings, and an exhibition. But they asked me if I wouldn't mind setting the scene, and I've got half an hour on the time, so I'm going to do this very briefly. So stop me if this does not apply to you. As I say, I work with a lot of organizations, I work with a lot of executives, and one thing they tell me is we live in the VUCA world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. Volatile. Lots of changes coming that were unpredicted. We didn't see that coming down the road. 18 months ago, none of us saw a European war. None of us saw a supply chain blowing up. None of us saw rampant inflation coming down the road. Uncertain because we don't know whether what we're doing is right, because Peter Drucker didn't write a book about how to manage a business in this environment. Most of the old farts like me were taught out of business management books, which no longer apply. So that's quite interesting. So we're all experimenting. That has huge implications, by the way, for risk and what you do when your experiment doesn't pay off. Complex. Oh boy, is it complex. More and more things to think about, more and more stakeholders to satisfy, and ambiguous. The favorite thing from CFOs is, oh, we love ambiguity. We love not knowing whether a number is the real number or how far it might be off and inaccurate. So we're having to deal with that. And our leadership are asking us to be agile. So let's pivot. We need to be resilient so we can take the blows as they come to us. Let's be smart about the way that we operate and use the latest technology. And by the way, keep me out of jail. Let's make sure that we're all compliant as well. And perhaps one of the things that I've heard more than anything else, it's come back on the agenda, but I don't think it ever really went away. Do more with less. Less time, less money, less people, less errors, less everything. Okay, so we're in this complicated, really difficult world, lots of things going on, and we're being told, oh, you have to do all of that with less of everything. So that's what in military parlance we would call a target-rich environment. Doesn't matter which direction you shoot, you're going to hit a bad guy. So that's some of the things we're going to talk about today, is what do we do living in that world. Anyway, what I'd like to do now is, without further ado, is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to ask Camilla, Winlo, who is the head of data security at Gemserv, to come and join me. And we're going to talk about something I'm sure nobody has mentioned to you in the last month, ChatGPT. So Camilla, would you mind coming and join us? And we'll take it from there.
Do you want me to do a quick chat first?
Oh, yeah. We'd like Camilla up on the podium. Yes, we would. Go ahead. Would you mind introducing yourself properly, Camilla? And I'd love a couple of minutes. Tell us what you're hearing about right now.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Camilla Winlo. I'm the head of data privacy for Gemserv. We're one of the event sponsors. I'm on the IAPP publications group. I'm one of the Tech Women 100 as well for this year. So hopefully you will think that I know what I'm talking about this morning. And we're here to talk about ChatGPT. And I wanted to start with a quick, if you don't mind, raise hands, just so I know where the room is on ChatGPT at the moment. So could you put your hand up for me if you've had a go with ChatGPT? Yay, that's quite a good number of people. And would you put your hand up for me if you've never heard of ChatGPT and this is your first go? Excellent, right. So almost everybody's had a play with it. So hopefully you'll find it quite interesting when we start talking about them, sort of all of the risks and the different things that you might be able to do with ChatGPT. And I have another speech later on as well, talking about it specific to marketing. So pink lanyard people, if you like this, you might like that. But the thing that's really interesting with ChatGPT, and the reason why it's got particularly exciting recently, is people like being able to talk to intelligences. And that's been something that's been sort of part of humanity forever, really. You know, you can think about things like the story of Dr. Dolittle, who could talk to the animals, and that's quite fun because he can communicate. And we've wanted to be able to do that. And we've had these increasingly clever computers that we can make do things for us. And we're just at that point at the moment of being able to feel like you can have a conversation with a computer and not just give it a series of instructions and get a computer game up or something. And that's what makes it really fun. And the thing that makes ChatGPT really fun is it feels not just like you're having a conversation with your computer, but like you've got a colleague. So you can start asking ChatGPT to do things for you with that sort of work intelligence going on as well. And feel like you're getting sensible responses from a colleague, which makes it very exciting, really fun to play with. And hopefully you've all felt like that while you've been having a go with ChatGPT yourself. And I'm sure you all already know, you know, it's the fastest growing app we've ever seen. 100 million users in a month. It's unbelievable, really. But with all of this excitement, any cybersecurity person will tell you that when people are having an emotional response to something, that can stop the sort of the sensible part of your brain, always thinking about how to assess the risks associated with it. And so the point of today is to go, well, let's talk about what's exciting, what's cool, what's the possibilities here. But also, let's see if we can just have a little bit of a chat for that sort of slow part of your brain, about what the risks are and what you need to be careful of and what you should be thinking about while you're having a go with it. So there we go. So I'm going to finish my little introductory session before I go and talk to Peter and answer some questions with him. I asked ChatGPT to write me a little poem, so I'm going to finish with my poem. I asked it to write me a poem about ChatGPT, privacy and marketing. It wrote a poem much faster than I would have done, I can tell you that much. So this is the poem. You can all decide for yourselves what kind of quality it's achieved. In the land of marketing and sales, where companies compete like snails, there is a thing that makes them wince. It's called the privacy defense. Consumers now demand the right to keep their data out of sight. They want to shop without a fear of targeted ads that are too near. But marketers, they won't give in. They'll find a way to make a win. They'll use their tricks and SEO and hope that privacy won't go. So if you see an ad that's odd or wonder why you're being prodded, just remember it's all a game and privacy is still the aim. But don't worry, it's not so grim. There's always a chance to win. Just keep your data safe and sound and laugh at ads that still astound. There we go.
Thank you very much, Camilla. I've actually come across poet laureates that would struggle who would come up with something like that.
Especially given the topic.
Yes. Yeah. It is an amazing tool. So for those of you that have used ChatGPT, or if you're like me, managed to get on the shortlist for GPT-4, it's an amazing product. But there are some things, as you say, that we need to be aware of. And now quite a lot of the work I do is on emotions and why people do what they do. And as you say, when you talk to their emotional System 1 lizard brain, it's a really instantaneous, low-effort response. But actually, we do need to be a little bit more considered. But why is everybody talking about ChatGPT? It's just another AI, isn't it?
Well, it's the most competent AI that we've seen for a long time. So it's not that long ago that people were wondering whether we'd ever get to this point of having something that was capable of being almost creative. And not only have we got ChatGPT, but I'm sure everybody here also knows we're now up to GPT-4, which is something like 500 times more powerful. The next one's clearly coming very shortly as well. So this is a technology that you look at it and go, it's cool now. It's clearly getting better, faster. And it looks like it might be another one of those ones like processing power that gets faster really fast. So sometimes you have this sort of feeling that you're looking at the future and you're looking at a technology for the future that's actually going to change the way that we work and live. And this is one of those. This is one of those ones where you can look at it and go, actually, I feel like I understand, I can start to get a glimmer of the way that the world in 10 years will be quite a lot different from how it is today. And I can play with it now. And that's just super cool. So no wonder people are excited.
Yeah, and I think that there's an element of, because it is so competent, to use that word, that we think, is this the silver bullet? Because we've all been looking for silver bullets, right? The ultimate answer to every business question we've ever had. I deal a lot with sales. I don't want to take anything away from salespeople, but they always want the silver bullet from a marketing point of view about the one asset that will absolutely kill the business case and everybody will join up. We're not quite there yet. I'll come back to the creative part of AI in a moment. But ChatGPT is machine learning and AI. It's an instance of machine learning. How do tools like this get developed? Because what is it that's going on here? It isn't something like somebody is sitting there and just coding lines and lines of rules. There's a different experience going on in the back end as well as the front end. Yeah,
it's really interesting. So, I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with what chatbots have been like to this point. And they've typically been able to do one of two things. They've been able to pick up a keyword and then find the relevant document, or they've been able to follow a decision tree and take you through a process. But this one's not quite doing that. So what they've done is they've taken the whole of the internet, right? Quite a large data set. So they've taken everything that wasn't password protected on the whole of the internet and then set the algorithm free on it, essentially, and asked it to work out. So what it does is it works out what the most likely next word in the sentence is going to be. It's as simple as that. So it's just looking for probabilities, which, by the way, also means that it's quite easy for a computer to work out whether a computer wrote something or not, right? Which will become quite important if you come to my session this afternoon. So, later this morning. So it's coming up with probabilities. So you put in, it's almost like Google search, you put in what it is that you want to know, and it goes and finds what it thinks is likely to be the best fit for the answer. And it's done that by just ingesting vast quantities of data and then being trained. So they've specifically trained it to be able to do things like pass various exams. And it's, you know, the exams are quite interesting, actually. So we've probably all heard about it being able to pass a bar exam. That wasn't something that a law professor discovered. That was something they'd specifically made it do. They tested it on things like sommelier exams. So ChatGPT knows a lot about wine, which is handy to know, but you wouldn't necessarily expect it. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to go, well, this is how we assess human intelligence. Let's put the same kind of assessment onto ChatGPT intelligence and see how it does. But all of the testing exams that they're doing are essentially regurgitation of knowledge. So they aren't giving it creative writing exams. It wrote me a fun little poem, but I don't think it's going to get a degree in poetry for that just yet. But it's all about ingesting this huge amount of data and then learning how to by probabilities, come up with things that look like human speech and look like they address the question that you've got. I'm going to go off on a slight tangent now, because that's where ChatGPT gets a little bit dangerous. Because it's coming up with what is the most probable next word in the sentence all the time, the other thing that it's doing is it is coming across very confident. And if you think about what I was saying about, you know, we feel like we're talking to a colleague, for most of us, we like talking to colleagues who sound quite confident because you feel like you can trust them. And ChatGPT will always sound confident. And ChatGPT hallucinates. So that's the word that they use for where it invents things with huge confidence. So if you think about what this looks like from a misinformation or disinformation point of view, ChatGPT doesn't know whether it's right or wrong. It just thinks that this is the next thing it should say. And so sometimes it will tell you things very confidently that are absolute rubbish. Right?
I've made a career out of this.
It still sounds like a lot of colleagues to all of us, I'm sure. So, but that's what you have to be a little bit careful with it, because we like to trust people. We don't really like to fact check. That's human nature. But that is, you know, what it's doing is it's bringing in all of these, you know, it's such a huge range of sources, predicting what comes next. It's not doing what some of us might think, which is going and fetching the right answer. It's inventing the next thing to say. And that is where it gets a bit dangerous, because the problem that you've got there is if you then end up with ChatGPT regularly telling people the same wrong thing, easily people could start believing it. And then what happens? So that's one of the things we need to be a bit careful of. That felt like a very rambling answer.
No, it's fine, Camilla, because you've actually raised something that I've noticed. There are two ways in which ChatGPT fails, as far as I'm concerned. The first of which, as you say, is, depending on how you think of it, I tend to think of it as a very sexy front end to the whole of the internet.
Yeah.
So it's very good at retrieval about stuff that's already known. It isn't actually truly creative in the sense that it's coming up with new knowledge. So if you're looking at ChatGPT thinking it's going to find you a new answer, probably not. It'll probably find you a good answer to a question you raise. But the other one, as you say, is that confidence thing. So if you try this, if you use ChatGPT to read an annual report or a balance sheet and find the risks, it may find you 5 quite obvious ones and miss 3. Now, if you make big business decisions based upon that because it sounds confident and you think, well, look, it's found these risks, that doesn't mean to say it's found everything. It's found essentially what it's predicting. So what are some of the other risks associated with using tools like this? Because I can see that people are very excited. If any of you read Dilbert, I just feel like it's the CEO coming in again and saying, we need to get some of this ChatGPT stuff. Go forth and make it happen. I don't think we actually ought to just go out there and immediately bet the farm on ChatGPT's responses.
Not quite yet, I don't think. So I definitely think people should be playing with it, right? But it should feel like playing and experimenting. Think of it as that way. So the things that make me a little bit nervous at the moment, ChatGPT wants to be regulated. So the vice chair of OpenAI, who created ChatGPT, is writing, they're writing open letters left, right and centre going, guys, come and help us out here because we can see that there are lots of risks, but we're building this thing And fundamentally, the conflict of interest that we've got because we're creating it is preventing us from doing everything we need to do to help make sure we get this right. We will miss things, help. And the regulators aren't there yet, right? Then, from a data privacy perspective, I'm looking at it going, I'm not sure you can do what you've done. And you look at what regulators have done about those problems in the past and you think, is there going to be quite a fundamental change here? Or are all the regulators going to go, actually, the cat's out the bag now. We're going to have to allow this kind of processing to take place and just, hope that people get to know that that's the sort of thing that happens. So the bit that concerns me a bit is, I said at the beginning that they've done it by scraping the whole of the internet, right? That includes your social media, right? You may well have come back from holiday, posted all of your stats and commented on some public posts and put it out onto your feed for the world to see. And you may well have sat there thinking, do you know what? I really hope that's going to educate ChatGPT and help it come up with better answers, but it's not what I'm thinking when I do that stuff. And they're taking it without your permission and using it in ways that you probably weren't thinking about when you did it in the first place, and that's a bit ick. But they're also doing that with things where, a company might reasonably think it had some IP in place or copyright. If those things aren't password protected, they've gone in too and can come out again. So what does it know about your company? What's it going to tell people? How's it going to present you? And then, sticking with being a bit technical and privacy focused, we've all got, we all have a right to know what things know about us and where the data's going. And I'm not absolutely sure I can work out how ChatGPT can do that. So, I can go in and ask it to tell me about me, and it'll give me some answer, but not everything it knows. Is it capable of telling me everything it knows about me? How right would it be? And at the moment, it's telling us that it only really knows about things before 2021. So I look at it and go, well, you have a right to be forgotten as well. So, things that were on the public internet about you that may have been inaccurate and you want them removing, how do you get them out of ChatGPT and stop that being part of the story? So we've seen in the past, regulators have tried to say to these companies, this data must be removed from your database for all of our citizens. And so far, what I've seen is the creators of these data sets sitting there going, that's actually too hard. We're just going to go and do business over there where they're not asking us these difficult questions instead. So, what's going to happen with that? I'm not sure. It could be that the way the machine learning happens needs to evolve. It could be that there needs to be more thought put into how we actually answer these questions. It could be that, regulators just go, do you know what, the benefits are so huge, we're just going to throw our hands up in the air and decide that life is continuing. I don't know. But it's a difficult question. It's technically difficult to actually get to an answer that fits within the laws that we have at the moment. And it's not what people are doing when they're building these tools right now. So that's a bit of a risk. There are other risks about the way that people can use ChatGPT. So it will write you malware if you ask it to at the moment. The way that they're having to deal with it is they're having to go through risk scenarios and specifically take them out of what ChatGPT will answer. That's a lengthy process, isn't it? Right. And they are very explicit about the fact that it will do these things. It will do things it shouldn't do at the moment. So they've done things like try to stop it explaining how to, make explosives and things like that. But just staying on top of that means you have to be quite cutting edge on science. So that's a risk. We also know that with things like phishing training, a lot of the time when I talk to people about how to avoid phishing attacks, I'll talk to them about things like the quality of the language that's used and the credibility of the text in an email. But if it goes through ChatGPT, that's not such a problem anymore, is it? And it will write you phishing emails because it won't know the difference. So all of these things, one other one that I should probably mention that's really important as well, it tells you at the moment that because this is a test program, it tells you that it is watching what you're doing with it. So their people are potentially reading the questions that you put into it and looking at the answers and seeing why you gave it a thumbs up or a thumbs down as being a good quality answer or didn't respond. And we've seen cases before of human moderators looking at these kinds of things of, in some cases, it looked like an AI wrote it, but it wasn't. It was either a human choosing one answer or another and sending out the best, or writing it and pretending it was AI. Those things have happened. Can't be happening with ChatGPT. There aren't enough people to do it. I can't believe it. But anyway. But what I mean is that there is human intervention and data ingestion and data processing that isn't just what you're seeing on the front end going on. And we don't really understand what's happening because that's not particularly transparent at the moment. So what we have seen is a security researcher, for example, has been able to find very commercially sensitive information about companies where a company director has put in a commercially sensitive strategy report and asked ChatGPT to create a PowerPoint deck from it. And that data has been ingested and it's been possible to extract it if you know how to do it. So there's that sort of risk as well of what are you adding to its data set that wasn't available on the publicly available web in 2021, and who's seeing that, and how is that going to influence ChatGPT? And we don't know at the moment. But we do know that because this is the one that makes people feel like they've got a really cool colleague to work with, it is the one where people are going to start behaving like it's a colleague and potentially, and feeling like, because it's a robot, things are secret more than they are. And I think we do need to be a little bit careful about that sort of thing as well. So, interesting risks.
Lovely. So, sadly, we've run out of time.
So fast.
Clearly, we're in an interesting world. I mean, for those of you that haven't thought about it, any program at the moment has no inherent ethics or morals.
Nope.
It will do whatever you ask it to do. ChatGPT has already started socially engineering. Mm-hmm. So those of you who've done capture, you know, the one about put all the squares in, it hired a human being to do that on its behalf because it said it was blind. Mm-hmm. So this is a kind of novel world we find ourselves in. We're actually working with somebody who's an entire sociopath, mm-hmm. who has no limits on what they're prepared to do. And although it looks like fun, as you say, it can have inadvertent consequences. Like, you think you're asking a confidential question, how do I win the affection of this person? It doesn't work, by the way, I've tried it. And it will publish all of that. And it may limit how much it cites somebody, but it's a strange world. It's actually one of the reasons why GPT-4 is not going to be open source in the way that ChatGPT was. They've seen the abuses. They've seen things go horribly wrong with this technology. So I think I'm going to follow your advice. By all means, play, but be aware that you're working with a sociopath that has no loyalty to you, and will do whatever you do and replicate that elsewhere if it's an expedient way of getting to a solution. Anyway, with that, Camilla, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.